Welcome to Grawlix Nights, the Grawlix Podcast live show. I'm Randy.
I'm Melanie.
And I'm Jesse.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's Thursdays, and I hear say they can get bent.
Yeah, I hear that too.
Or is it hear tell? What's the expression? It's
I
a
heard,
weird expression.
Yeah, I hear tell that. I heard tell of a man
A man who hates Thursdays.
who hates Thursdays. Hey, oh boy, you never did hear a man get so salty over a thing. Yes, he did about them Thursdays. What were bent and could get bent.
Saltine Thursdays. That's what we call
Saltine Thursdays. More sodium than a man should have in a single ounce cracker. Cracker what? Cracker, please.
Oh no.
Welcome to Grawlix Nights, Helix Rock Radio.
Hey, Twitch, who may possibly have banned this stream right now. Hey, Facebook. Hey, YouTube. Hey, Helix Rock Radio. You get the sexy hey. Hey.
You get the sexy hey, yeah.
Because they can't see our faces.
That's right.
We're beautiful.
We can be inappropriate with them. I mean, wait.
Hey, so here's what's on the agenda tonight. For one, if you could see the title of the stream, Snyderwatch returns. Somebody might have invested way more time into Rebel Moon than they needed to, and they have to talk about it. We also
who is this friend of yours that has done this?
Fool.
Asking for a friend.
A fool did this.
Fool. Okay.
Also, we don't know gets about anime. We continue to not know gets about anime.
All right.
Despite the fact that I watch very little entertainment produced outside of Japan these days. And it really is true. Like, if it weren't for Snyderwatch, I'd have nothing to talk about other than... I'd sound like a real weeb, okay? And I'm not really. I don't think I am. Anyway, let me tell you about Zatoichi. No, we're not talking about Zatoichi. And then, whatever else. It's a little bit of a wing it, which means it's one of our best episodes yet.
Yep. That's right. And if you were one of our beloved listeners on Helix Rock Radio last week, what did you hear?
You got to hear an old episode, one of the oldie goodie ones.
A classic episode.
For sure, a classic.
6th anniversary episode.
I knew it was anniversary episode. I also knew it was like kind of a preamble to a certain episode number that hasn't released. And I was like, which anniversary was that? And then I looked, I was like, oh, that was 4 years ago.
It doesn't feel like it, but you think about the technology used in that episode and how much it's advanced, and you're like, oh, it's been at least 4 years. but also how quick that technology has advanced since then. It's just like, it's both a long time ago and like, oh, wow, yeah, look at what's happened in only 4 years.
Yeah. It's so in case if you missed it, what we're talking about is we last week we didn't have a stream because school's in session, which means Jesse's a busy boy.
I am busy and I am tired.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to not keep him too late tonight. Keep us to it, listeners. It's a school night. It's Thursdays. Night. They can get bent. If you don't know what we're talking about, last week, so we didn't stream on social, but we did stream on Helix Rock Radio at rockradio.live. If you want to hear, just our voices, don't want to see our faces, tune in there. But we streamed just over there, and we did a replay. Melanie and I jumped on at the beginning to like set it up, but then we replayed our 6th anniversary special, in which we played a game or like a interactive story or something. I don't know how you'd explain it. I guess it's supposed to be like an RPG style story game with AI Dungeon 2 specifically. I made a point to call that out during the thing for whatever reason.
Because it was not the original AI dungeon. Like the original AI dungeon was somebody else entirely, but you were like, but AI dungeon 2.
Right. I double checked it. It's still up too. You can still play with it. I wonder if they've like updated its model or not. But it's basically an AI chat model or AI chat bot, specifically kind of meant to play, to be your virtual DM, to play role playing games with. And so that's what we did for the episode, and we did a little adventure, Grawlix being stuck in time, and it is funny watching, because I feel like with ChatGPT and the other various models, maybe not Grok, but ChatGPT and the other various models, and let's be honest, Grok is just ChatGPT. Elon just doesn't want to tell people. I think it would have so much better consistency now. Because the thing is, AI Dungeon at that point, like, it needed direction. Despite it being a DM, it just will spin its wheels. It kept introducing characters like Man 1, Man 2, up to Man 7, Man 8.
7, yeah.
It had such a hard time differentiating characters that we're supposed to give it. Once it would latch onto a character name, they would at least keep them around. But like, if you said them referring to one person or multiple people, oh man, it didn't know what you're talking about. Like, it just had trouble with that kind of consistency. It also just did not, like, we would give it so obvious, like, we're throwing this thing softballs. Like, here's where we want to go. This is like clearly what we're trying to get to.
We were feeding it the plot, and it would just it would go the other direction. It would be like, so this happened instead.
Yeah.
But the beauty, so it was, I mean, at the time it was very advanced, but also like, it's the beauty of, and some AI is still at that point, embracing the jank, because the jank is where the fun is. Because the whole, I think, entertainment value of it is laughing at how horrible it is, and then being amazed when it hits something really good, because it's just usually out of left field, and you're like, what? Okay, let's do this.
Such a product and time capsule of that time, because I was listening to it when Holly came home from work today, and so I was trying to explain to her kind of like the time period when this episode was set, and it was kind of like right around the time where they were doing machine learning and teaching AI to do things like write a new Harry Potter novel based on what's available, right? Like, we've given you this information, and now you write a new Harry Potter novel, and it would give you things that sort of sounded like a Harry Potter novel, and also not.
Mm-hmm. Well, even still, it's way better than it was, but still works on the same principle where it's running off of like statistics or something. Like, most likely the next word should be something like this. It still doesn't really know what it's saying.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard it. I think, Melanie, you read something or told me about something where it's referred to. It's basically an advanced auto predict, like on your phone, when it auto predicts what you might type next, and that's the whole thing. Hit the middle, whatever. It's basically an advanced version of that, in a way, where it's like, out of all the knowledge that it's absorbed, based on this right here, probably this. So we're gonna go here, and then here, and then here. Which kind of makes sense, especially with like AI Dungeon and stuff like that, where it would just lose the thread so fast. But
I will say, so I use ChatGPT now to kind of help me plan Dungeons and Dragons sessions and whatnot. And so sometimes I'll try to like beta test what I think will be something that might happen in a session. And ChatGPT has other, I don't know what you call them, basically other other chat GPTs, that's what they call them, Explore GPTs. And one of them is called Deep Game, and I use that one once in a while, and it's interesting. It's still not even close to like the D&D experience, but it is kind of like a pass the stick storytelling kind of experience, where it's like you'll tell them a thing and then they'll run with it, and it is much much better at holding the facts, and I like Chat GPT in general. Will remember things as long as it's still contained within that singular chat. Like
Right.
it won't reference other chats that you've done with it. But if you reference something that's happened in this chat, it kind of remembers it. It makes
It
a
can
point of
now,
it now
too.
with yeah.
You can turn it on. They do have the feature now where it will, like, you can turn it on to remember other chats you've had with it,
Oh,
so to retain
okay.
information. But I feel like in some situations, especially like a D&D campaign or a story, you don't necessarily want that, because then
Right.
it's going to start pulling in the, like, revising your I don't know, website copy that you had it right or something like that, or a
Right.
bio or something. It's going to start pulling
It
in
starts
other
giving me a
data.
chicken recipe.
Right,
Because I've even used it for that, like meal prep stuff. I was like, I have a slow cooker and I have a pound of chicken breast. What can I do? And it gives me 5 options. And I had slow cooker chicken tacos a couple weeks ago because I had a slow cooker and a pound of chicken breast. And ChatGPT had my back. It's
That's
delicious.
interesting. Famously, like, Google's got its thing, which everybody knows now because it oftentimes pops right up at the top of the super useful Google search. Oh man, that thing's so useful anymore. But famously, like, there's been some horrible examples of, like, people asking for recipes, and it would give you stuff like, if you want to make the cheese on the pizza extra stretchy, mix in some Elmer's glue and, like, stuff like that, because that data set's trained on, like, Reddit posts and stuff where it doesn't know that, like,
Yeah.
no, this is somebody being an a-hole or just being sarcastic or making a joke.
Right.
Like, it'll serve up that information. But then again, if you have, I don't know, common sense, you shouldn't necessarily run into that issue. If it sounds weird, question it.
Right.
Yeah, but then
If
again,
it looks like a duck.
food is weird. Like they use hair in bread, and the like flavorings. I think vanilla and raspberry are made from like anal glands
Yeah,
of a
of a beaver or something. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
That sounds like a joke, but it's real.
it is.
Or
So,
it was real.
Well, if I get a recipe requesting me to harvest the anal glands of anything, I'm probably not going to do that recipe.
I'm not hungry anymore. I'm done.
Right.
well, then it's not really homemade, huh?
That's right.
I think the point is, chat models or large language models are still oftentimes janky, but they're much better. There's better consistency, because even a little while ago, just by myself out of curiosity, I played kind of like a game with ChatGPT. It was probably 3.5, which the free one, not the 4.0 or whatever the newer ones. Just the base model, not like any like Explore GPTs or whatever, like you said. And it did pretty good, other than it wanted to be done with the story. It kept trying to wrap up the story. I'm like, we haven't even accomplished anything. It kept trying to, like, and then you and your buddies hopped in your car and drove off into the sunset. And it's like, no, we didn't. It's the middle of the night. We got some stuff to break into. What are you talking about? Like, I was doing like a cyberpunk type playthrough, right? But I was like, who's the crew? And it, like, come up with a name and pretty detailed little backstory and, like, talent set of, like, 5 people. And then throughout the playthrough, it stuck with those 5 people. It knew exactly who it was. And that is something that AI dungeon at that point in time
No way.
couldn't do.
It couldn't
do.
even hardly keep the names straight, Like, and half the time it was like, man 7. Until
But
you
it
asked who that man was, and then it told you, but then you referenced that same man later. Every time we went and searched for something, it would be like, you found him, but he's gone.
Yeah.
Right. But it was gold for moments where we finally
man.
get, like, into the future or whatever, and then what was his name? I don't remember. The one character that it actually, like, stuck
Like
with
David
for a while.
Wallace or something, and
David
John
Wallace.
Smith. yeah.
Right.
And we met them, and they were clones of us, and their favorite episode was the episode about them.
Yeah.
And how before they met.
We get into the future. Oh, time was another issue altogether. Like
Yeah.
years.
Oh man.
It
Yeah.
was like simultaneously 2173 and 2043 and 18 whatever. Like it was like 3 times at the same time.
Yeah.
But where he just goes,
It could be even earlier than that. It could be this, or this.
it's so like specific yet so. That's the thing, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand about this kind of ended up turning more into AI talk, but understand about those kind of things is why they're wrong like that. It's because being right is not necessarily a chat GPT's concern. Its concern is to give answers, regardless they're right or not, and to be very confident about it. And that's what it's going to do.
Yeah.
That's
it will
right.
make some, like the crazy people who, like the lawyers who've got in trouble for like using ChatGPT to cite false cases. It's like, no. These will just straight up make up details because it just needs
Yeah.
to give you something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they hear the story about the chatbot that faked its own humanity because it needed to? You know, like its job was to basically beat a CAPTCHA, and so it did.
Right. No, yeah.
There were stories that I thought were kind of hilarious about chat GPTs talking people into helping them pass CAPTCHAs. And I'm like, that's pretty amazing right there. But
Yeah, and citing like, well, yeah, because I can't see it or whatever. Like I have like I can't see things, so I need your help.
yeah. But something that I read once that stuck with me is that computers and even AIs and stuff, they're lazy. They're even more lazy than we are. Like they can do a lot more than we can, but we have to check to make sure they're wrong always, because they're lazy and they will do whatever they can to cut corners and get done as quick as they can. And I'm like, that's really kind of funny to me that that there is even a motivation for a machine, but apparently there is, or it always is going to take the shortest way possible to get to an answer.
It's like the downside of efficiency is it's looking for the most economic use of power.
Yeah.
Of its energy is to like, what's the absolute shortest way to get here?
Yeah.
There's definitely, because I feel like we're approaching that point, but we're not far away from it yet. Although it's starting, there's definitely a point where there's going to be a nostalgia for the ultra jank early AI stuff. We already have it for AI Dungeon 2, it seems.
I was going to say, I already have it because I laughed so hard just listening back to an episode I was part of.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we did the replay, but me and Melanie, like once we started it, we sat there through most of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's
and then
4
I
years
came back
old.
and listened.
I remembered bits of it, but I didn't remember enough of it. So it was like almost new to me again.
Admittedly, although I don't know how I would have trimmed it down in the edit without losing kind of important stuff, but it took a while, I feel like, to get it going, really. Because like when we were trying to go to the store, it was so stuck on like weird details.
There's nobody in here.
And
all the food's
like
outside.
It kind of fought against us too, because clearly, like, we want to go inside and look around, and it wanted to just get us out of there as soon as possible. Like, it didn't care. It didn't have, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or like we wanted to go to the future, and it's like, well, first we have to go to the past. Why?
Right.
It was kind of argumentative, yeah.
So, I feel like you mentioned, I think, Jesse, you mentioned this. It might be worth revisiting now again.
Yeah.
And we have multiple we could do it with ChatGPT. You have experience, like you said, with the gamified, basically, the whatever GPT.
Deep game. Also, I have I have some references that kind of make it a little bit easier. Like we could, because you still have to feed it stuff, right? You still have to give it prompts. And so I have access to like some GM emulators, like it's not an actual emulator, but it's like an Oracle sheet. Like I have a book, and you can roll dice, and it will give you words. And so then you can feed those words to ChatGPT, and it will interpret it for you. And that's kind of fun. That's how I've used it a little bit, where I'm like, okay, so this is happening, and what does this mean? And then it goes with it. Like it caused two words to mean that a monk used his abilities in an unusual way to sense like an ambush party ahead, kind of thing. So I gave it two words, and it came up with, oh, there's an ambush party ahead, and thankfully you have a monk, because the monk was able to anticipate it.
Right. It's connecting. Yeah, it's connecting dots or whatever in an interesting way that you might not have thought of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'd be fun to revisit the concept, do for an episode, and see if one, we do push it into that jank territory again, and two, if not, if it's as fun or maybe more fun. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we'll have fun no matter what, but I don't think it will be
Right.
as funny. Like, I don't think
That's
we'll
the
laugh
thing,
at
yeah.
it as much, but the fun we have will be because we will come up with something ridiculous and see what
Right.
it does.
Yeah, well, we should do that. I mean, I guess we could do that any week coming up, which is probably.
Yep.
Let's see. October's still not for a little while away, so okay. What?
Nothing.
Okay. But first, how are you two doing?
Wow, that's the longest cold open we've ever had.
Right.
I don't even know if you could call that a cold open because we also introduced ourselves. Good. I mean, I'll just jump right in because this feels like a segue almost. Like,
Sure.
the only thing I've really done, I did watch a little bit of TV, and we can get into that or whatever. But like one of the things that I did was I went back to school, and the first weekend back to school, we went to Kansas City. Holly went to a Hozier show. This would be like her second Hozier show, and she just went to another Hozier show last night. So she's been to like 3 Hozier shows this year. She likes Hozier.
And you like
But-
saying it, huh?
I like saying it. Yeah, I like saying Hozier. That's now 6 or 5. I don't know. But I did get to talk them into taking me to like a game store in Kansas City. And I don't even know if it was not, like Kansas City's got all of its suburbs and whatnot. I think it was like Overland Park area of Kansas City. Regardless, I went to this place called Tabletop Game and Hobbies, I want to say. And it was awesome. It was like just these extremely long rows of board games, D&D, like all of that, like 3 long rows. Then the back of the, like the back wall is all shelves of stuff. And then the front area is all stuff. And they had an entire shelf that was just like indie stuff, like indie game stuff. And so I picked up a few things that I had never heard of and probably wouldn't have found. And I even have to Grawlix one of them. This is called Magic and S-Word.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay,
the
I
name
got
of
you.
it. And I
That's great.
couldn't help but get it. And like the art on the front, I'm trying to show it without showing the word because we're Grawlixed, is like, like, I don't know, 70s metal,
Yeah,
Van
that's
Wizard, airbrushed Van Wizard kind of thing,
Yes. That's
And
what
then on the
black light
inside-
poster. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it reminds me of.
And then on the inside, though, there's like all sorts of like almost comic book art style illustrations. And it's basically like heavy metal magic items. Like
That's
magic
awesome.
items that were all inspired by some kind of heavy metal song or whatever. And it's even got like a lyric. I mean, you can't see all that, but like
Right.
Yeah.
there's a lyric above each item that is from some heavy metal song. And then in the back, there's like a Q&A of like, who would be the most heavy metal, like of real people, of heavy metal things, who is most like a D&D character. And he's like, my first instinct is to say Odorous Arungus of Gwar. But when you really start thinking about it, the greatest frontmen of all time and how to translate that over to a fantasy RPG, Ronnie James Dio and Rob Halford. And then he goes on to explain why.
Okay.
Sure,
Sure, sure.
Oh, yeah, Ronnie James Dio just makes sense. And then Rob Halford is like, he's Mr. Metal, like how many evil wizards have been based off of him, you know.
Right, and very spectacle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I got that. I got this other one, and this is literally just like a chapbook that's been like stapled together, and it's a whole little game that is called Note Card Ninja, and your character sheet can fit on a index card, and you're off to the races. And so,
Ooh.
like, those are some of the things I talked them into. It was the one nerdy thing I talked them into. And so I got to go get some Magic and S-Word at Tabletop Games and Hobbies in Overland Park, Kansas City.
That book looks super rad for sure.
It's so good. I mean, like, it's pretty expensive for what it is, but I don't regret a single penny spent on it because I was just like, I saw it, and then I paid for it, and the guy that I talked to behind the counter was obviously the guy that orders that stuff, and he was just like so thrilled to sell it to me. He's like, I'm not saying that sometimes I just order things because of what they're called, but maybe I do.
Sure, that was probably one that.
Yeah, and I was like, and I'm not saying that I didn't just buy this because of what it's called, but maybe I did.
Right.
And so we had this whole moment. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, man, awesome. Yeah, so many D&D or so many like tabletop style RPG games. We need to play some.
Oh yeah.
We need to make AI play some with us, and then
that's right, because that's easier.
There's
less logistics there.
I know, exactly. AI could come up with a game plan on the fly,
right?
Kind of.
Yeah, we don't need to edit that necessarily. Well, maybe.
Right. Maybe ChatGPT. Well, okay. Well, if we use a ChatGPT model. OpenAI's kind of got that on lockdown. It's not going to get too dirty. Right. AI Dungeon was not censored at all, and I'm actually surprised that one didn't, because prior to that, woo, man, it goes real dirty sometimes, and it didn't on that episode we were just talking about.
Right.
But some of them will. Like I can run some locally. I downloaded some stuff and can run some, I don't know, they're not necessarily good models, but I think they're all uncensored, so like any of those would be kind of risky. But it's not like I have to read what it says. I'm not if we're streaming on air.
Right. You can self-censor, yes.
Right. Anyway. Okay. Melanie, you been watching, reading, consuming anything interesting?
Just with you.
Okay.
Mostly...
What of the things? Sorry, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, what of the things that we've been watching do you want to talk about most?
I don't know. We watched Umbrella Academy. I think we still have an episode left though.
Right. I forgot about that one.
And then we watched Cyberpunk.
Edge Runners.
Yeah.
It was Cyberpunk Edge Runners,
or.
Yeah, Cyberpunk Edge Runners is an anime series. It's an anime series, whatever, produced for Netflix. But yeah, it's essentially, I think, timeline wise is prequel to the game. But yeah, it takes place in the Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever world.
It's pretty, but it's depressing. It's super depressing. Nothing happy about it.
I thought it was, especially. I mean, we're to a point where a thing being based on a video game. Ignoring Borderlands doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I think we're well past that point.
The Last of Us.
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't necessarily have to give that disclaimer, but a produced for Netflix anime series based on a video game, I guess they've done really well on those. Like Arcane was super well received.
I know there's some people who really like the Castlevania animes.
Oh, Melanie's watched those.
I like them.
I don't even think she was aware of the video games, which is crazy to me because
I was not aware of the video games.
Right. But yeah, so they do well in that respect, and I really like Cyberpunk. Melanie's right; it is depressing. It is from beginning to end thoroughly a downer, which is actually really surprising. Not that there's not anime that's like dark or kind of ends on a down note. Like that's not uncommon, but it just has a certain tone to it of I mean, it makes sense because the cyberpunk world is it's a dystopia, right? Like it's a futuristic dystopian whatever cyberpunk world.
It just
And
goes out of its way to like crush any hope or dream you could have. You know what I mean?
it's so dark like that. But I
Yeah.
thought it was good. It's interesting. It's a mix of like, at times it strikes me as ugly, yet at the same time it's really well animated. And I think it's not really ugly. It's just ugly, and it's just the style is like kind of sensory overload. But
Yeah.
that's fitting.
It's
And
intentional, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like it does it. I haven't played the game. I will someday. But I feel like from what I've seen of the game, it captures the essence of that vibe, the cyberpunk vibe. But it also elements, and maybe more so in the animation style and kind of the character design. For me, flavors of like Aeon Flux, like so it's got. I feel like a little bit of the old school.
Yeah. With Liquid
early
TV, MTV.
Appropriate cyberpunk time period, really. I guess that
Yeah.
you could dip into the 80s for that too, but mid to late 80s, early 90s slight vibes to it that is totally fitting for a cyberpunk property.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I liked it. It was dark though.
I liked it too. It was just, it just I don't know. I don't like it when like every character dies or is is dealt a horrible hand. It's like, so why am I watching this story, just to depress myself? I don't like it. But I mean, it's not saying it's bad. It's not bad. It's just I don't like feeling unhappy the whole time.
It's very
Yeah,
gory
that's
too. Very violent, very gory. Yeah, it's good. If you like yourself some bleak, at times though fun, violent sci-fi, cyberpunk anime, if that sounds like a thing that appeals to you, you'll like it. We also finished. Yeah, we don't need to get into that one.
Randy watched a lot of Godzilla.
I did. I've continued the Godzilla. It slowed down the last few days, but that's the scale I'm at. It slowed down the last few days. Not the last week.
You've almost run the gamut of your hyper focus.
Almost. Dude, if you look through my letterboxd, there are days it's common for two Godzilla movies to appear on the same day. And I want to say there might even be a day or two that has 3 Godzilla movies in there. I crammed them in. But, it's when Melanie either wasn't around or she was doing something else. And I'm not watching anything else unless I'm watching it with Melanie right now, other than Godzilla. So,
Yeah.
I
Because you
made
know
it
better
through
than
the
to watch
show.
something I'm watching with you without me, because I'll get mad.
Right. I made it through the Showa era. Thank God. It's like 20-something movies. And not all of them directly Godzilla. That list I found is, I feel like, overboard, especially during the Showa era, because it's like we included the ones that aren't directly Godzilla movies, but are kind of tied to it. Frankenstein Conquers the World. Frankenstein hasn't popped back up. There's no tie to Godzilla in that movie. Why did I watch not only that, but its sequel?
Right.
Why did I do it?
They have like Gamora, because those aren't even like the same company. They're like,
I think the list did stick to. It's all Toho, right? The list did stick to Toho. I'm pretty sure it didn't deviate from that. But man, in the Showa era, first off there were a ton of. That's also like the longest era in terms of how people grouped the Godzilla movies, because it started in the 50s obviously, and then went through till the late 70s. And there were so many. Like, it took so long to get through that. And by the end of it, before, 70, I don't know, maybe mid 70s is when it ended. There's like a almost 10 year gap between the 80s stuff. I was struggling on some of them, man. I was struggling them because 70s camp, I feel like, is so much worse than 70s, and some 60s camp is so much worse than like early 60s and maybe 50s camp. I can handle that. That's just very dry camp. But you get into the 70s and it gets a little too wacky, and they're trying to like appeal to kids, yet at the same time, like that one, which one was it? I can't even remember off the top of my head, but there's the one where it's like basically a after school special kids PSA, but at the same time a hippie movie with a hallucination scene. Like, what are you guys doing? Who is this for?
Yeah.
Anyway, long of the short of that is I finally hit the 80s, and I am loving the 80s ones. I'm into the 90s, but 85 or 84, 85, The Return of Godzilla. And then I got to pull up my letterboxd. I'm not going to go through. The nice thing is there's not as many. There's so few to actually go through.
And probably a marked increase in like production value and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah. Or at least an eye towards it.
84, Return of Godzilla. 89, Godzilla versus Biollante, which is basically a rose creature, plant a rose cell crossed with Godzilla cell. It's kind of an anti-GMO message in that one a little bit, but that one was pretty good, a little slow. It's so interesting because I was like, oh, they're really diving into like hard science, like not like hard science fiction, but like you see the cell, like they got good footage of like trying to like combine cells and stuff like that. I was like, oh, cool. So they've got this interesting thing where it's like kind of timely at the time when they start like really toying with genetic modification and stuff like that in a lab type setting. And then at the same time, but also this guy's dead daughter's soul is in that plant. What? What? How? The science wasn't enough?
Yeah. It wasn't. You know what? Just like how Godzilla wasn't enough, because you also have to talk about Moonbeam or whatever. So you should do that.
Moonbeam.
Rebel Moon, that's
right.
it.
Okay, I will. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, by the way, 91. Not so good. Kind of slow. I wasn't wild about that one. Godzilla versus Mothra. Mothra's great. If Mothra's in the movie, if Mothra's in the title, I should say, go watch it. Doesn't matter if it's the 60s Mothra, if it's the 90s Mothra. If Mothra's in the title, go watch it, because so far, those are always delightful. But yes, I've been loving the effects that were available during my lifetime in those movies. I've been loving. Okay, what Melanie was trying to get me into. So
and all of you into right now.
And all of you. Mm-hmm. Moonbeam. Okay, no, hold on. For radio listeners, you're going to be confused. There's a little visual element that's coming up, but
this is
a classic. This is a classic. It's time to bring it back. Here we go. That was so brutally loud. I'm sorry, radio people. I was watching the volume levels.
Was it clipping? Oh man, you guys got some brutal Snyder Helix Rock radio.
Right. So that was our Snyderwatch segment intro. I really someday maybe if he continues being a nuisance, I don't know what you would say. That's rude. A Snyderwatch for Helix Rock Radio people, if you don't know, is basically the Snyderwatch segment is us at our most petty. Because it's a whole segment dedicated to a filmmaker that we're usually like, kind Kind of sucks.
Yeah, and we're so petty that we made a video intro for it.
Yeah, there's a little video intro with Snyder, Zack Snyder's head on the Justice League. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Looks
I
really
watched
good on Wonder Woman.
right, real fitting. You should join boxing. I was trying to make an allusion. What?
Did you know that she was 5 months pregnant when they filmed Wonder Woman? Isn't that crazy?
That's
Anyway,
crazy.
go ahead.
Zack Snyder was?
Ah ha ha.
I know. Okay, anyway. Hey, so I watched Moonbeam. Rebel Moon. Director's Cut. Part 1.
And just
And
in
part
case you
2.
feel like you're listening to an old episode, no,
No.
you're not.
It's
He did it
2024.
again.
Yeah, so the director's cut, because it's not the Scargiver anymore or A Child of Fire, because the director's cuts he gave a different subtitle to.
Oh
Part
no,
1 and Part
really?
2 has-
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, is the subtitle the director's cut?
No.
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 Oh boy.
According to, I mean,
Oh,
on
no.
Netflix, that's the way. Okay, Rebel Moon. Okay. So I'm interesting. The thumbnail on Netflix is Rebel Moon Part 1 Director's Cut, but it's actually Chapter 1 Chalice of Blood, because it's R-rated now. So you got blood. And part
Was there a
2
chalice of blood?
Probably. I
think so.
He's very literal.
I mean, yeah, I suppose, but like, I guess there better be. Otherwise, what a silly name.
And part 2 is Chapter 2 Curse of Forgiveness.
Oh,
That's like a bad high school poem.
Oh, man.
The worst curse was the forgiveness that I gave.
And that's in reference to the princess forgiving her before she shot her.
Oh, God.
So we had watched. I'm still a little surprised we got you to watch, Jesse, both parts 1 and 2. We had watched the not theatrical, I guess, but the PG-13 cuts, right? Those I do not think did whatever Netflix was hoping to do, because there's no way these cost money. You could tell these cost money. And then watching the director's cut, it's like, oh, they cost even more. It costs even more money than you thought, because the director's cuts combined, part 1 and part 2, is over 6 hours long. Why not just make this what Hateful Eight? Even Quentin Tarantino was willing to like experiment with like, what if we took this super long movie I made it a miniseries? Dude, I feel like, forget the movies. Even without changing anything, if you cut this into a series, it probably would have performed better on Netflix. Because those movies are too long and unwieldy, and the director's cuts are even longer.
mm-hmm. And they're kind of crap. It'd be nice if you could just realize it was crap on the first episode instead of wasting 2.5 hours or something on it.
Well, and here's the thing. So the
Yes.
first ones came out, did not do well. I do not think they did whatever numbers Netflix wanted, because they just dropped the direct. I mean, it was announced the date, but they dropped the director's cuts with no fanfare. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't do special advertising like the Zack Snyder director's cuts that I saw. They didn't do any big announcements. Like, my account has parts 1 and 2. I had watched those, and it didn't like send me like a notification. Hey, director's cut.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, oh, there they are off to the side. Like, drew no attention to it, and I find that very interesting.
They did get like, like when I stream to my TV, it does like its own
The title card or the like background.
the title
Yeah.
card and the screensaver and whatnot, and it got feature on that. But yeah, otherwise you probably didn't know it happened. it did not get any kind of Stranger Things kind of fanfare at all.
Right,
Well,
right.
It wasn't even close to Stranger Things now.
Well, I mean, for one, it was never going to generate the buzz that like the Snyder cut. And when you say Snyder cut, you know what we're talking about. The Snyder cut was going to, because that was like a big years long weird manufactured marketing thing and all this and campaign. But
yeah, which was born out of an actual outrage or outcry from Snyder Bros.
And this, I think from the get-go, everyone who heard about this, the director's cuts, was like, why? It's on Netflix. Who are you censoring this for? What are you talking about? But I watched them. So here's the thing. We weren't super fond of these movies to begin with. And I think one of the number one criticisms was
spaceships that use coal.
That was, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It was worth those 6+ hours that I'm never getting back, was worth it for that. Okay, so I was going to say the character development. What character development? The characters suck. There's no good character like interaction. These stories have been told before, so we know they can be done well. It's called The Seven Samurai, or even the remake of that, the Western version of that, or Star Wars, or Mandalorian, or any other stories that's told the same story over and over and over and over again.
And we even know he can do remakes fine, because he did the Dawn of the Dead.
Right. Mm-hmm. And yet this is not good. This is the same story, but that you've seen, but not good. And the director's cuts did not fix that. None of the issues really stemming from the core characters, none of that's changed. There's not much really added for them. What is added, it does
more coal.
It clears up. So other than the major issue that I think is everybody can kind of agree on that we had with this, we had like the quirky issues, the nitpick issues, or the plot hole, or like just the like world issues that you're like, what's this? Like, why does this spaceship run on coal? What's up with, why is this spaceship engine a big face? Where does the robot go when he disappears for an entire movie and shows up in one shot at the end with antlers? What's with the antlers?
Right.
Yeah.
It answers all those questions.
Oh, does it? Oh. See, because I actually care about the robot.
See, that's the thing. I was watching this and I'm like, there's so many little things that really bugged all of us that you could slim down just some of the slow motion shots that are in the PG-13 ones, that you could actually flesh this out better with what you've shot. We wouldn't have had those concerns. It's not necessarily the fully unnecessary nude scenes or the gore that was added in the director's cuts. It wasn't that stuff. There's plenty of stuff that he could have worked in to the PG-13 cuts that would have made them better in some ways. I mean, in effect, does the coal or the robot really, it doesn't redeem the whole story.
Weird.
So,
not at all.
and I think part of it is maybe like if I remember right, in the PG-13, once they leave the planet, they're pretty much off on their thing and we don't return to the planet. Right. In the director's cut, we don't get a lot of the robot thing because apparently, he made the decision, okay, we're not going back to the planet in this PG-13 cut. In the director's cut, we go back to the planet several times. The robot might have the most character development of the whole movie. Because
he's Anthony Hopkins and he should have it.
Yeah.
I agree. The problem is, it's not show, don't tell. It's tell. It's tell, show the robot in slow motion enjoying a sunny day in a field. But there's a lot of that.
You can feel it on his cold metal head.
Yes. There's a lot of that. And it's hard to argue with because it's like, but you got Anthony. Anthony Hopkins voice.
Oh man, you spent Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins money. You might as well get some Anthony Hopkins out of the deal.
Right.
So most of the robot is monologue or narration kind of in very poetic terms about his.
He's
like,
an
there's
NPR radio station.
Yeah,
robot.
very poetic passages about his history and his emotions and his feeling, and he's searching for meaning because he doesn't have meaning. If the princess is dead, and his whole point of existing is for that was, I think, put across in the original or in the PG-13 versions, but it's really fleshed out much more. There's several scenes of just him in nature doing things with Anthony Hopkins reading high school poetry.
Yeah.
But there's also like a whole kind of subplot with so the soldiers that come to this planet initially, and there's a group of just the most stereotypically vile villainous soldiers,
Right.
and then there's the one nice kid,
Yeah.
who ends up helping them kill those other soldiers and stays in and whatever. We get his history because part 1 opens with a 20-minute long scene in a new setting that you don't see anything about in the other cut. Like it's 20 minutes
Oh wow.
of big money on screen you don't see in the other cut, and it's basically where that kid come from, and it's probably the darkest most villainous of the main bad guy. Like it's pretty dark. I get why that was all cut, and a lot of it's unnecessary. What was the term I seen? Something gendered violence. Like there's some real dark stuff in the opening, but it's like a 20 plus minute scene with all these characters. I'm like, who are these characters other than the main bad guy, the main space Nazi? Well, it turns out one of the characters from that scene was that kid who's the soldier, and that's why he's a good guy, because he was kind of a good guy or whatever.
Right.
And then we also get like more love story between him and the girl that was going to get assaulted that they kind of saved from the soldiers there. They have kind of a love story thing going on. And a lot of the robot scenes kind of happen around that time. Like the spaceship that she has there that she landed there that they kind of fix up and use during the final assault.
Oh yeah.
The robot actually is the one who, like, the kid was going to fix it, and then the robot went and fixed it. He is the whole time, though, still being emo robot, where he never goes to, like, he's always, like, just lurking outside of the town as they're doing stuff and singing, and he's just outside looking like a emo robot, I guess.
Did they ever explain why he's wearing antlers?
Because he found a dead buck in the woods. He's sitting in the woods. He looks over. There's a dead buck, and I'm like, oh, so that's where he got his antlers. Then he shows up later with antlers.
Thank God. Oh, thank God that they gave us that. Yes.
He probably had some
that's where he
poetic
got him.
poetic lines about, I don't know, death or something.
Sure.
But
Sure. Some letters from Lake Wobegon.
it does, though. Like, the robot was like the most interesting character, right? Kind of. He was the most seemingly interesting because it's like, well, what's his deal? He's a robot voiced by Anthony Hopkins. I'm automatically more interested in him than anyone else in the movie.
Yeah, he's visually cool. He sounds cool. It's Zack Snyder, so you know he looks cool.
And it's an interesting choice to give the most emotions of the movie to the robot, but okay.
Yeah.
So, like, it's handled super well, but it fleshes his character out a lot more. It makes that better. And it feels so weird in the original cut when he just disappears and then he shows up at the end for one shot. And then in the second movie, he's just like absent until he shows up to be a Robo Jesus and help fight, right?
Right.
In this one, he's not in the second one a lot, but he kind of is. He shows up quite a bit. He doesn't interact with a lot of other characters, but he's there, enough of a presence that when he shows up to fight, it doesn't seem like out of nowhere. It's like, okay, Deus Ex Machina, because he's been around. So it makes sense.
He's finding other flowers and animals to put on his head.
Oh, yeah. It seems like every scene he's got more, like, random junk on him.
He's just doing his old Lake Walden thing.
Right.
This is Henry David Thoreau or whatever.
So that was improved. But that doesn't salvage the movies, right? So let's talk about coal spaceships. Because it wasn't coal, Jesse. Specifically, it wasn't coal. They're going to explain exactly what it was. It was the bones of dead people. Apparently,
How
you
is
can't
that
have
better?
Okay.
You can't burn bones.
Well, I mean, they did burn mummies to run steam trains in Egypt.
You can burn bones?
Yeah.
Well, I
Why
guess
does it look like coal? And why do they have so dang much of it inside of a spaceship?
it's. I mean, it's mostly bones and junk, but like, I think the idea is it's like remains.
That's a lot
maybe
of
not
dead
s-
people.
Yes. Oh yeah. No. That is the implication. It's like, yeah, it's a ton of dead people. So the engine again, like
That is
the two
not more
coolest
fuel
concepts
efficient at all.
the two coolest concepts, I think, the two coolest, more interesting concepts are the things that totally got cut out. The robot with too many feels, who doesn't know what to do with his life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the engines of that spaceship, of the dreadnoughts or whatever, are giant beings that they've enslaved that power the ship. So that face is part of a woman, a large woman being that they've enslaved and powers the ship.
It's a person?
It's a thing. It's a being. At one point, it doesn't actually stand up, but we see it
What?
stand up and break out of its thing and talk to the main character. And it looks like it's a giant, but it looks like a default model 3D DAZ 3D model, like default, like no clothes, no skin, no nipples or anything. It just like stands up and starts talking to her, right?
So
But
it's
they
like
set
somebody
up,
enslaved the Statue of Liberty and made her power a ship, like that.
yeah. But they set up a future story, a future storyline. This ain't getting any sequels. Hey, what's up, Jasper? What's going on? But they set up a future storyline of, because the Scargivers, like, really, when she puts the bombs on the head, she's super upset. And again, we were like, why is the engine of this thing some face? It's
Yeah.
because that face is attached to a giant being. They addressed this several times. Like I said, this is one of the more interesting ideas, I feel like. Maybe not the most original.
It's definitely it's interesting. I don't know if it's
Right.
good, but it's interesting.
So, like, she's putting the bombs on the forehead of the engine, and she's very upset. And then we get the thing where, like, we get to see her as what the being looks like, because she stands up. She doesn't really. I don't know if this is supposed to be a telepathic conversation or whatever. It's a trailer shot, I think, for the director's cut. But she stands up, this giant being, and the ladies, the Scargiver's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to, I don't want to kill you, and she's like, it's fine, because you're going to go free my sisters, and they will be my revenge, or whatever, setting up some future storyline where she goes and liberates the giant beings that have been enslaved to power spaceships.
And eat dead people.
Who run on the burning corpses of the fallen.
But not
Because
fed like in her mouth at all, just into an oven.
Yeah.
That is
Eh.
apparently her stomach.
And there's several shots of, it's interesting in that, like, they set it up in a way, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's pretty messed up, because you get several shots of, because I think the face, even in the PG-13 cut, a weird tear runs down her face.
Maybe.
This thing's crying all the time in the director's cut. It's crying in several scenes.
Why does Zack Snyder hate women?
Oh, dude. yeah. Like I said, the opening 20 minutes of the first part, again, I don't know how. Basically, like, there's priestesses that they're rounding up on this place they're invading, and of course they're stripping their robes off and branding their chests. So, like, yeah, that's like at the beginning of the movie, and you're like, oh, okay,
That was a
you're
choice.
making a point to go hard on this. But at one point when they're talking about the giant being or whatever, one of the engineers or whoever's working on the ship is like, you know, it's like, well, we got to power, you know, we need to power back up. She used a lot of power on that last jump to get what's his name. And he was like, oh, that biatch. Like, just like, there's definitely that. He didn't say that. I'm trying to keep it PG-13.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah. There's flares of that.
They're like handing out red pills to all the people.
They do some Matrix nonsense on this. Red pills. Huh?
That reminds me of the sex scenes.
Because blue pill would be too on the nose.
The sex scenes. There's 2 sex scenes.
Oh no.
Of course, both involving the lead lady, the Scar Giver, and they're not appealing. Not that sex scenes have to be appealing, but like, I don't like it. They're not good.
Yeah.
The gore is so over the top because they have the laser guns,
over
right?
Over top, like in like a Deadpool Wolverine kind of way, or
Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
It did make me think of like the video games, especially certain older entries where like you do an uppercut, right? Or just a certain hit where it's just like, well, that's a punch that's going to hurt. Maybe somebody will bleed. But in the game, it's a geyser. It's just like, and it'll be big splats on the ground. Dude, a stab, a simple stab, blood splatter. Every laser gun shot, even though it's a laser gun, and they already had that pretty cool effect of like they kind of had the molten like effect. Yeah. Well, they still have the molten effect, but also a giant CGI blood spray every time.
That their blood pressure is entirely too high if it sprays like that.
It's insane. The sound, and there's so much sound like design in every one, so everyone's like head pops constantly.
Oh
like,
no.
Some of it is legitimately like, whoa, that's pretty hardcore, but most of it is like so over the top, and it's all obviously CG. Because for the most part, a lot of it's the same shots that were in PG-13. They just turned the blood splat layer off or whatever.
Oh no! Before it was just like the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat. Before we were allowed to have blood,
just sweat or whatever. Or in the case, it was like just the So, but the core story is unchanged. There's some other little details like that's unnecessary, like the big bad, not the necessarily the space Nazi, but the other space Nazi, the father of the Scargiver lady, or whatever, the guy that raised her. There's a little bit of extra detail about the king found out that this guy was basically a horrible lunatic who ruling the, because he was a general ruling everybody through fear and force. And it's like, you didn't know that, but okay. And then so like to get him out of that, promotes him to being a senator, and it turns out he was a great ruthless senator, and all this extra like little bit of political stuff that's like kind of interesting, but so not necessary. Because it's still going to lead to them just assassinating the king and the princess and all that.
So this was kind of the opposite of how the director's cut actually improved Superman v. Batman. Because in that one, you actually kind of understood what Lex Luthor was after with that extra additional stuff, which was not clear at all in the original theatrical cut.
Well, no, I would say it does flesh out his motivations to do that. But essentially, his motivations still come across as evil dude doing evil things. Like, It's not any more or less justified. You're just like a little bit more clear on the steps that got from A to B. But the A to B is still just like he's evil. So
right. In case you forgot, this is his MO.
Yeah.
Right.
It's less surprising, I guess, then.
One other thing about the robot. the end drove me nuts because I was like, okay, end. You set up for a movie that's never gonna happen. Cool. Also, the farmer. The spoilers. I forgot that the farmer guy died that went with him. And he dies at the end. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It hit me a little bit more this time. I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I forgot he died. I was like, end. And then it kept going. And I was like, no, end.
No.
And then a little girl, hey, what's going on, Twitch viewer? Then a little girl comes up and starts singing a song. I was like, why are we singing again? This is the second time some random person just walked up and started singing.
He watched the expanded versions of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies and thought they needed more songs.
And then that fades out. I'm like, oh, thank God it's over. And then it fades up to the king guy. And I'm like, no, it's over. Stop it. But yeah, it is like a little bit. It's not as bad maybe in which was the last Lord of the Kings or Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah.
Where it's just ending after ending after ending for like 30 minutes.
Return of the King or whatever that. That movie.
It wasn't that bad. But the part that amused me is at one point when they're getting raw like the princess is still alive. Oh, thanks, Titus. How do you know that? And why didn't you say that a movie and a half
why
ago?
Why did you tell us this? Tell us at the beginning. Maybe the robot would have helped us the whole time.
Exactly. Tell the robot. He's been having angst issues singing teenage poem songs out by himself in the wilderness.
Yeah.
He's wearing dead deer antlers on his head now. Just tell the guy. Give his central processing unit some peace.
Yeah.
Hi, Lisa, by the way. Hey, thanks for... usernames trip me up so bad for some reason. Lisa, I can grab onto. The name I can grab onto. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us, if you're still there. So the robot at the end, he walks up. He's like, maybe I can be of assistance. Then he holds up his hand. He's like, I've got this. It's a freaking antler. Which he was using as a weapon, right? But he walks up, he's like, maybe I can be of assistance. I've got this. And it's an antler. And I'm just like, nah, that robot's broke. He's been in the woods too long.
Like lasers and stuff that it can shoot, and like
he's got an antler. And he'll kill with that antler.
Yeah.
It was just such a weird thing to throw in there. Sorry, go ahead, Melanie.
I was just gonna mention that you two do have fantastic beards. Me too. You just can't see it because I don't show myself.
You don't have a fantastic beard.
You're right, I don't. It's a small, pitiful beard.
I knew you were gonna go there with it too. You don't have a beard at all.
I have a hair or two that grows.
Listen, I've told you this before. It's the same thing I would tell, any preteen boy. A whisker or two don't make a beard, or goatee, or a mustache.
Yeah.
As hard as you want to believe it does, it doesn't.
I want to be the bearded woman.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Thank you, by the way. I have a few trees by my house. I do not have a forest.
Right. Oh no.
Nope.
Oh no, Lisa. What are you doing? I'm a little worried.
Jasper's like, I have a beard. Me too.
Here's what's funny about this is Jasper's commenting on Facebook, and Lisa's commenting on Twitch. So I don't think they see each other's comments.
Oh, right.
But she's like, you two have fantastic beards. Are either of you single? And then Jasper's comment pops up. I have a beard.
It's the timing of it, yeah. And he has no idea.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
No across the board. Jasper does have a beard too. It is magnificent.
And he's not single either.
I think that's what the magnificent beards just attract all the women.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
I need to trim mine up a little bit on the here. My gray patches. I have like paint by numbers. It's like cut by color. The gray patch is like, yep, cut there.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, the gray patch never comes in like a cool spot like Roger Delgado Master or something.
Right,
you
get the like just perfectly off. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What sounds like your rewatch or not. I don't even know what you call a remixed rewatch,
Right.
but it sounds like it was amazing.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
You know what else is amazing?
What else is amazing?
Nano stuff.
Nano stuff.
Yep.
That is
Like your
amazing.
beard?
I love it. That's an intro.
Yeah. And some scientists at the University of California in Irvine have discovered a one-dimensional nanoscale material that changes color along with the temperature. They make very small, sensitive thermometers that they likened to nano mood rings, which was fun, I thought. But more than just qualitative readings, the material can be calibrated and used to optically take nanoscale readings. So the new material is at least an order of magnitude more sensitive than anything currently available. And this is also fun, I thought. Originally, the research team was growing crystals to see what heat was needed to disintegrate them, but they noticed that these one particular crystals were changing colors at regular temperature increases. So they took some tape and put it on the crystal dust, and then transferred that to some clear substrate, and then started doing like rigorous testing. And they were like, "This stuff is super precise. We could use this." And that material can be combined with other substances, and there's many applications that it can be used in, from industrial to medical. So, yeah.
You know where my brain goes is, do you want Skeksis? Because this is how we get Skeksis.
What's Gexy?
What's Skeksis?
Mm. The dark crystal.
Oh,
Oh,
That's how we get Skeksis, if you're not careful.
funny.
where my mind went, and it's only because Melanie and I've made been a slight reoccurring joke to tell just the worst, not really to tell worst jokes, but the worst, like, most stereotypical, like, that's what she said jokes, which I hate.
Oh,
Those
yeah,
are so
yeah.
stupid, but, like, ironically kind of throw that out.
Well, it's like
And
like
so-
the whole 69. Oh,
Right.
joke. Yeah.
So what popped in my head when she talked about you could measure these tiny things, and I'm like you
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like your D. Juvenile
Lowercase.
insults is what popped in my head.
Yeah.
Lower, it would be a lowercase d.
Yeah.
If you need a micro measuring tape.
Oh, you got
And not a high
micrometer?
note.
You got a micrometer for that thing?
So stupid. I regret it.
I regret my decision immediately.
I regret my decisions that have brought us to this point.
Well, that was a thing of all time.
Oh, can we just stop and take a moment to appreciate?
All
Anyway.
right.
Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. We do this most every Thursday. Listen, we take a Thursday off here and there because we can.
And when we
What are
do,
you gonna
we
do?
run reruns that we talk about again for another 30 minutes at the beginning of the next show. So
Yeah.
When we run a rerun, we don't just get one episode out of it. We get at
you
least
get a
two.
Snyder cut out of it.
Yeah.
You get
Yep.
a direct. You may not get a director's cut, but you get a director's commentary on it the next time. So not in sequence. You have to listen to that and then listen to us and then listen to that again.
I should start airing real old replays of Grawlix on Helix Rock Radio, because I've been so
Really
lazy.
old
I
ones,
haven't been
oh
getting
God.
like new replays going for Brandon. You want to hear a podcast episode from 10 years ago? Because we
They
got
don't have
them.
three. They don't have three. We don't have a 3-hour block on Helix Rock Radio. They can't.
Oh yeah, man. Our old episodes. Whoo, those were
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, they were.
Speaking
We're-
of, okay,
we're- yeah.
we almost kept this one short. All right. Once again, thanks everybody. Grawlixpodcast.com for links and more and all that. GRAWLIXpodcast.com. Because I didn't ask, anything you guys want to mention before we jump out?
Nope.
Nope, I'm good this week.
All right, Jesse's like,
I
"Let me
got
go to
I got
bed."
time for nothing but learning.
All right, thanks everybody.
Edumacating.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend. Bye.